Hello, everybody out there on YouTube, on X, wherever you may be. Welcome once again to another weekly edition of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. I am once again joined by my compatriot, Chris Babos. Chris, before we get into everything, just wanted to say good call with the hat. If you saw us during our double dip in between the doubleheader yesterday, we did a quick hitter on Twitter. Our hairstylist was off yesterday, in case that wasn't obvious. So I made sure to hit the stylist today. Chris getting the hat ready to go. We're looking fresh and clean on this special Thursday edition of Alley Talk. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing lovely. I had the chance to go out to Voorhees, New Jersey this morning and visit the Flyers prospects. I love hockey, so any chance I get to be around the rink is a good morning. So hockey in the daytime, and then I get to talk to your lovely face and talk about some Phillies baseball. So it's a wonderful world.
Of course, man. Well, I told you this last week when our guy Ben was on with us. I'll tell you this again. I like watching hockey, but when it comes to talking hockey, I know one thing, and it's let's do that hockey. So that being said, we are here to talk about the Phillies on Alley Talk. Again, thank you guys for the last-minute schedule change. For those who are watching and listening on YouTube, on X, wherever you might be catching us, appreciate you guys joining us despite the fact that we are normally scheduled for Fridays, but with tomorrow being Independence Day, we thought it would be best to move a day forward. Phillies have an off day, so a nice little Phillies action for you despite them not being on the television.
I got a shout out.
Go for it.
My mom's birthday is July 4th.
Oh, okay.
As she was growing up as a kid, her mom, my grandma, used to tell her that the fireworks were for her birthday, which I always thought was one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Oh, well, isn't that adorable? Well,
shout out to Chris Babos' mom.
There you go. Mama Babos, shout out. Happy birthday. A little early birthday, I guess, because it is tomorrow, right? But yes, the fireworks are in your honor as well, ma'am. So appreciate you raising such a wonderful son who could join us here week in and week out. Chris, great day at the ballpark yesterday, huh? I mean, yes, it was hot. Yes, it was humid. They played too, and we got to enjoy each other's company along the way. So take us there. You were here for game one. You covered it. I know that was the loss, but take us through the day, man. How was it for you?
Yeah, any time we get to spend in around the Phillies, the clubhouse, the press box, down in the dugout and getting some cool photos, which is just something that speaks to me. But yeah, no, it was Nick Abel struggled, which we touched on yesterday. Not ideal, but again, that sometimes just comes with being a rookie starter and learning how to kind of pitch in the major leagues and then how to recover when you stub your toe, so to speak. What he did is he lost the strike zone and wasn't able to find his way out. So, and then after that point, the Phillies got behind the 8 ball, down 6-0, climbed their way back to 6-4. Just weren't enough outs left to get the job done there.
Yeah, they did show some life at the end, which I appreciate. On a day that was so hot and so humid, you have 9 more innings coming. It would have been easy to roll over. They didn't allow that to happen. They finally started to string some hits together. I think through the first 6 innings, they had 7 hits, but none of them came back to back. I think there was one inning where they had 2, but Turner had gotten picked off at first base. So when Harper singles, you don't have any real noise on the base pass from that point forward. So really started to string things together. And I even asked Topper after game 2, which they ended up winning. I asked him, what is it for your team? What does that mean for you he's talked about in the past how it can be an emotional dump. When you have these big moments and these big comeback moments or these big electric moments, the crowd was on its feet to end game 2. It can be really hard to come back from that. And on a day where it's easier to get gassed, like it was yesterday, so humid all day long. I know that I've said that like 6 times already, but it was so brutal out yesterday. To be able to come back and really show life and string hits together, something they weren't necessarily able to do throughout the entire game earlier in the day, And I love what he said. I mean, it's not surprising because he said similar things throughout, but he said, they stay with it. I've talked about it quite a bit. These guys have a short memory. It's an experienced group. They keep moving forward. They go to the next day and forget about yesterday, whether it's good or bad, which is something great, right? You always talk about we flush that one after a bad day, but we don't talk about enough that like you have to keep that mindset day in and day out. You can't. What did Nick Sirianni say, right? Greatness is like perfume.
Mm-hmm.
You sniff it, you don't drink it, right? Because it's poison. So if you get too focused on the great days and allow that to carry over, it can be poison. It can kick you in the butt later. He said, this is a team they forget about yesterday, whether it's good or bad, and they're ready to go. It's a good, positive attitude to have. So I love that attitude from Thompson. You can see that in the results yesterday. Is it going to play out that way every single time? Obviously, no. But to lose the way that you did, to have to really empty the pen. Thompson did say that he felt they had a lot of run left in the pen yesterday with the off day today. But to really empty the pen in that first game, question marks arising about your young starter, and to come out and really just shove it against a guy who, despite his numbers as a big strikeout artist still in Dylan Cease, had to feel good going into the off day. I know that I was technically the reporter in the box for game 2. You took some time to go take some pictures, but what was your vibe? I was stuck in the box. You were around the stadium. What was the vibe for you in game 2 from the crowd? I know that it wasn't a same crowd. I know a lot of people left and came back, a lot of new faces. What was your feel as you walked through the stadium and you were taking some shots?
Yeah, honestly, it was just it sounds so generic. It was just a good Philadelphia crowd. There was a buzz in the ballpark. People were, chatting, but, you hear different things. You might hear something about March here, something about Harper here, something about the Eagles there, because obviously. And that's really kind of how that played out on the ballpark. I didn't really stop and talk to anybody. Kept to myself, which I tend to do. But it was again, as you mentioned, it was a lovely day in the ballpark. It started out kind of cloudy in the morning, cleared up real nice, and then gorgeous sunset, and then you had the fireworks afterwards. So
the nice fireworks, nice light show. Our recap didn't go out to this morning, so I did get to beat some of that traffic, and I watched some in the rear view as I headed home for the day after such a long day. Chris was in the box for game 1. I originally had purchased tickets to take my daughter to Kids Run the Bases, but after they scheduled the doubleheader, they rescheduled Kids Run the Bases. So I still took the family down to the game, got to see some Phil's action, despite it being a loss. Took my father and my kids down. It was a nice day, and then went out to the parking lot, got changed, and met Chris in the box for a nice nightcap. So a good day all around at the ballpark for you to win the series. They've now won 4 straight series at home against some tough teams in the Blue Jays, in the Mets, in the Cubs, and in now the Padres. So 4 really good series wins in a row at home. No, it's not 4 in a row, but the last 4 home series. And that just shows the toughness of this team. You want to be a little bit above 500 on the road. You want to be a little bit above 500 against other above 500 teams, and you want to dominate at home and dominate the teams you're supposed to dominate, and that's exactly what they're doing. If you go by our guy Jeff Kerr over at CBS, he loves being a troll on X, but he said, imagine being upset about a team who has the 4th best record in baseball. Just imagine it. It's one of those things where I think that we start to take this team's performance the last few years for granted because it didn't result in a championship. And for a city that hasn't had a lot of championships overall, I know we've been blessed as of late with the Eagles specifically, but for a city that doesn't have a lot of championships overall, it's weird to think that we're not accepting of this is a great era of Phillies baseball and we can enjoy the ride while we're there, right? It harkens back to the Andy Reid era Eagles. Were you not excited about that team every single year? Wasn't that a great watch? Watching McNabb, watching Dawkins, watching Westbrook and shit. That's what you made it to 1. I know you didn't win, but you made it to 1. To see that era, it was taken for granted until they won a Super Bowl. Because as soon as he left and they went through the Chip Kelly era, people were like, man, did we make a mistake? I wish we had that again. They're trading away all my favorite players. They're experimenting. They're taking this guy from college and hoping that it works here. there was a lot of question marks. So to be frustrated, I think they hit the problem is I think they hit the World Series a little too quickly, right? If they were going in reverse order, like divisional series, then championship series, then World Series, instead of the other way around, people would be more and more excited about this team every single season. I think it would be less frustrations growing and mounting each season.
I think that's part of the problem is it's so samey, which I know isn't really even a word, but it's they haven't really changed much of it, and not to necessarily say that they've needed to, outside of getting more wins and whatnot. But the roster construction has been there. If you shopped or talked to fans around MLB and you're able to put out a lineup that's got a Trey Turner, that's got a Harper, that's got a Remuto, that has a Castellanos in it, a lot of fans would take the option, go talk to, we're about to welcome Cincinnati into town. Cincinnati would welcome that team with open arms.
You think they don't remember that season that Castellanos had there before he signed with Philadelphia? You think they don't remember and wish they had that again? Come on.
So, it's one of those things. And again, even as a reporter, it's okay, cool. Phillies are in first place. They're 2 games above the Mets. Let's just fast forward to October. Can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that is going to help or hinder them, because it helped, it hindered them late in the season last year. Now, it wasn't the deciding factor come October, but one thing that really became a black hole for the team late in the season last year was that 5th starting spot. It seemed to be a guaranteed loss no matter who they rolled out there. You had Taijuan going between roles, which isn't best suited for anybody, let alone a guy who's been a starter his entire career. You had your Kyle Tylers, your Tyler Phillips, your insert generic name creator from MLB The Show here. There was quite a few guys who rotated through that spot. Even Seth Johnson, who looked impressive in his outing yesterday, his one outing in Miami was horrendous. So they really had a black hole there. And Mick Abel in his first 2 starts, you mentioned that he struggled yesterday again with the walks. One of the big things that hindered him in AAA last season was his control, something you didn't see early on. I think he went no walks those first 2 outings against Pittsburgh and Toronto. Had a 0.79 ERA over those first 2 starts. Since then, an 8.56. And if you go by FIP, he's even been a little lucky. It's almost a 10.50 FIP, Chris, which means just basically 2 runs worse is what he should be, and the defense has bailed him out a couple times, basically, is what that means for those who aren't familiar with FIP as a stat. It's been a rough go of it for Mick Abel, and they're going to have to make a decision soon. The problem is Taijuan Walker, they want to keep him in the bullpen. He's not nearly ready to be stretched back out again. So maybe you could go starter piggyback him, and then or Abel and vice versa, have him piggyback, keep Abel's confidence up, only let him go 2-3 and figure it out. Now, yesterday he doesn't complete 2. I know that's not the perfect timing for the example, but do they rush their plan with Andrew Painter? Earlier this week, before Mick's rough outing yesterday, they mentioned that they wanted to give him his normal outing, work through some of the struggles he's had at AAA, and allow him to have a nice break during the All-Star break before they make a decision. Do they change course on that and call him up for this series in San Francisco? Aaron Nola, they've hinted at recently that he may need almost a partial spring training type of workload to get ready to come back. That would put him at middle of August. So he's not ready anytime soon. They're not going to trade for a starting pitcher because they have 8 potential options when everybody's healthy and pitching well. And all of a sudden you're in this same hole where if Mick Abel doesn't start to figure this out and at least be sufficient, right? He doesn't need to look like those first 2 starts, but he can't look like yesterday either. All of a sudden you find yourself in a hole where you're forcing yourself to make changes, whether that be putting Andrew Painter up before he might be ready, or before he's shown that he's ready, or being the club is comfortable with. You might be Aaron Nola might feel pressure to be rushed. Are you killing Mick Abel's confidence by keeping him up here and just letting him lose it? Is he better suited to send back down to AAA and you just kind of figure it out until Painter's ready? There's a lot of question marks about it, Chris. So I don't know what your thought is on what they should be doing as far as addressing this spot, but do you think that they should go with a wait and see approach on Abel, or are you ready? Hey, I know Painter struggled, but let's get him up here. Let Abel figure these things out down in AAA, and maybe he regains some confidence against some lesser competition.
You're not going to see Painter until after the All-Star game. Fairly, the sources are me that are saying that, but I just in the situation that I see, there's no reason. Again, we go back to where we started this conversation. The Phillies are 51 game winners now, I think. They're in the top of the NL East. You don't need to force up a prize prospect because you're struggling in the fifth role. If you're struggling maybe the fourth and the fifth starter spots, okay, now you've got a bigger problem on your hand. I think they can manage that fifth starter spot, even if it's, like you said, piggybacking, where you've got Abel and then Walker, and that's kind of the plan. I'm not a pitcher, so it's hard for me to really say. I don't know how much it helps my confidence if, as a starter, I go 3 innings and then get pulled. Even if I had a good day, even if I, allow 3 hits and 1 earned run, is that a good day for a starter that wants to go, assumingly 5-6 innings longer? So, but I definitely understand the argument on that as well. I think they've got the pieces to get by. Dombrowski's going to be kind of keeping an eye on the market over this next month. And they've got studs at the top of the rotation. And and Aaron Nola on the way in August, assumingly. So, I think they'll be fine. It's just weathering the storm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right? They haven't strayed too far from a lot of plans that they've had with this pitching staff. They've mentioned July-ish, and yes, we are July. The more recent clarity that they've provided has been that he'll be after the All-Star break. And I think you want to let him adjust his body a little bit. He needs a little bit of a rest. He's pitching more than he has in 2 years. He'll be expected to go potentially on 4 days rest once he does get called up, depending on what the situation is with Abel. If Abel does have his stuff return a little bit, even if it's, again, in shorter outings, you may have some flexibility to allow him to pitch on 5 days rest as he's done in the minors. But still, I agree with you that I don't think they're going to change too much from their plan with Painter. He's been on this very strict plan for so long. I don't think they're going to differ from that.
There's also some very important financial elements to the deal. You're able to limit his service time if they bring him into the Phillies roster after the All-Star break. Yeah. And the longer that you're able to keep them under the threshold of, I forget exactly what mark it is, but it tends to be that a lot of major prospects come up in August and September because it works out best for that service time. So
yeah, there's like 2 different moments in the season. Mm-hmm. It's like sometime near the end of May or early June, and then it's again like August time, basically. So, yeah,
so while a lot of it is, we just want him to work out and get comfortable and all of that. I'm sure is true on one level. On the other hand, if they felt he was truly ready and really was unstoppable, he'd be on the staff already. So I definitely think it's a matter of just trying to, formulate the best way forward. The best way forward for the Phillies, keep Andrew Painter as long as possible under the rookie contract. So if you can get an extra year out of that because you didn't bring him up until mid-August, you got to do it.
I understand that for sure. I think the one thing is that Mick is still so young. God forbid we allow young pitchers to figure it out and struggle at times and see how they respond. The question becomes, how long do you, if he continues to struggle 2-3 starts, how long do you keep him up here to allow
if he struggles
him to do it, whether Painter's ready or not? Right.
In his next start, if he struggles, I think you've got to send him down. And
it's not a punishment, right? It's just, hey man, we need you to get that confidence back up, go work on some things, and we'll have somebody else take that spot for now. You let them know this isn't a permanent thing. You've done good work for us. You still have a spot here, unless of course he's part of the trade deadline deal, but that's a whole nother story.
I mean, at this point, that seems less and less likely because with every outing, his trade value is going down and down.
True. The only thing I would say is
now that's probably recency bias as well.
Yeah. But I would say about his value is that people understand that he's young. So if you're trading for him as a young prospect and not a we need it to plug a hole right now. Like if you're trading for him as a development because you're not ready to compete right now, you're okay with him struggling at the major league level because you're going to work with him. You're expecting him to be a part of your team for the next couple of years, right? Whereas like if it was a trade with a team like Boston where they want to compete right now, they might not look at him the same way they did a couple weeks ago. Yeah, but one thing you said, Chris, specifically is that you can handle the 5-hole when you have the studs that they have at the top of the rotation. And of course, those studs are led by none other than Mr. Zack Wheeler. That guy is unbelievable. Had an extraordinary outing on Monday, 8 strong innings to win the first game of the Padres series. There's not much else you can say. It's funny. We asked Thompson earlier this season about, not even this week, we asked him earlier this season about his thoughts on a Zack Wheeler outing, and he said, just copy and paste what you wrote for every other one. He's that good. Like, what else do you want me to say? There's nothing left to say about this guy other than he deserves his flowers. He deserves one of these Cy Young awards that he's barely missed out on, probably deserved it in 2021. But he deserves one of these awards. He deserves probably a nod for the All-Star game. We're going to see if he gets it. But, I mean, the guy has been absolutely lights out as of late. What was his his final line for his last outing? I'm going to pull it up and filibuster a little bit if you want to say something on Wheeler while I pull up his last couple outings and how good he's been in June.
What I'll say on Wheeler is he reminds me of a couple of Phillies legends. Cliff Lee and the consistency in which Cliff Lee took the mound, and then Roy Halladay. And Roy Halladay was the master at just rinse and repeat every 5 days. You knew what you were getting out of Halladay. It was probably going to be a dominant start. Every once in a while, you got a 1 or 2 hitter, and then a couple of times you got a no hitter or a perfect game. That was Roy Halladay in a nutshell. Still to this day, probably my favorite pitcher that I've ever gotten to watch with my own eyes. Zack Wheeler reminds me of a pitcher that I never really thought I would see that consistency again. That it just the way that goes about his business is perfect, and you look at the National League just destroying the NL in strikeouts. So it's one of those things that we're gonna look back in 2 to 3 seasons and realize how special what we're seeing from Zack Wheeler is now. Because you got to keep in mind, Zack Wheeler, unfortunately, not a spring chicken. 35 years old.
Yeah, he's got 2 years left on the deal, right? This is the first year of the extension. And he already said he's going to retire afterwards. So he's already put the time on there. Like, boys, we better wrap this up in the next couple of years. Start
getting your Zack Wheeler tickets, because it's kind of like the John Cena countdown where we've got 50 shows coming to your town, and then all of a sudden it's down to 37 shows coming to your town, or coming to TV. And now it's I haven't really checked into it, but it's got to be under 20 now. So it's one of those that we're going to start counting down those Zack Wheeler starts.
Just a quick estimate. Let's assume he goes 30 starts, 30 to 34. We'll call it 32 a season the next 2 seasons. That's 64. He's probably got 16 left this year if you don't include the playoffs. So that's 80 starts left in this guy's career. Buy tickets when Zack Wheeler's on the mound.
If we're lucky, maybe 10 in the playoffs.
Yeah. So if he's scheduled to start, go buy a ticket, because Chris is so right. Not only has he been dominant for a long time, but this June especially, he was lights out. 31 innings, only allowed 2 earned runs, only 7 walks to 42 strikeouts, a 0.58 ERA. I mean, lights out. There's only been a few, I think it's only 4 other months like that in Phillies history. I don't have the list in front of me, but I know the most recent one was 2011 Cliff Lee. His August, he had a 0.48 ERA. If you remember, that guy was absolutely stellar. I don't think he was this good, but Hamels 08, my buddy Evan coming in the comments. You're right. That year from Hamels, you were like, oh, man, we found our ace. And then he went out and added 3 other guys to that rotation. But
so you started with the ace Hamel, and then you finished with the sledgehammer and Lidge. You had no chance against that team. That was Oh man, that was a special ride.
We're gonna get to the Phillies' current sledgehammer in a minute. Orion Kirkring been pitching lights out, but Zack Wheeler absolutely stellar in June. Not much else to say other than like he's almost been unhittable. 2 earned runs, four runs total. Like he has one wild pitch. He's only hit one batter. Like the guy is just lights out. He keeps getting stronger. He keeps getting better. His pitch mix is better each season. It's just so impressive to watch.
Christopher Sanchez is giving him a run for his money.
Also a really strong June. Great outing yesterday from him. So efficient, by the way.
Yep.
Not to lose
the five innings under 10 pitches.
Win pitcher of the month in June. So go check out our guy Ben's piece that he did on Wheeler winning pitcher of the month in June. But you're right. 2 other guys have had incredible Junes in this staff.
So, I mean, you just look at the stats for Sanchez on the year. 17 starts, 100 innings pitched. Zack Wheeler's at 107. 30 earned runs allowed. 108 strikeouts. 7-2 with a 2.68 ERA. Like, and then Ranger Suarez too is on this list of top 10 in Cy Young winners or Cy Young predictors. So again, the Phillies staff has been excellent outside of that black hole ish that's been that 5th starter. But again, I don't think it's a major issue. I really don't. You also are not going to see a 5th starter in the playoffs. That's important until the end.
And you're really going to see a 4th, right? If everything goes well, you're not going to see much of that 4th guy either, which will probably be Aaron Nola, who has had a lot of success in the postseason. That's just how stacked they are at the moment. Like you said, Zack Wheeler, we already talked about it, 0.58 ERA. Rob Thompson on Monday said he doesn't know managing or coaching if he's ever seen a pitcher have a month like that. He was really impressed by Zack, and he's already always impressed. Phillies have top of the 3 of the top 6 ERAs in baseball since the beginning of June, with Wheeler, Suarez at a 1.30, and Sanchez with a 1.76. And then, of course, yesterday was in July. He continued his incredible run with 7 innings, and just 85 pitches. The guy was so efficient. He was just gassed because of the heat is the only reason that he didn't go back out there for the 8th. Phillies have the best starting pitching in the National League this year with a 3.30 ERA and 2nd best in the majors.
The Phillies would have 60 wins with some consistent offense. That's the truth of the matter.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. They've been so good. Again, we're almost taking it for granted because they're not leading the league, and everybody wants to talk about they're being carried by the pitching again. So what? So what, Chris? Like, there are so many franchises that would kill to have the consistency and until Nola this year, the health and reliability out of a pitching staff that the Phillies have had these last few seasons.
I mean, yeah, look at Atlanta and look at LA Dodgers.
The Dodgers have more payroll on the injured list than the Marlins do total, than the Rays do total, than the Pirates do total. It's insane how lucky they've been and how it's a testament to the individuals. It's a testament to the staff that the Phillies have taking care of these guys. And obviously it's a testament to their performance too, that these are the guys you want to roll out there and they keep showing up week in and week out.
Shout out to Scott Fransky, who was talking about it yesterday on the broadcast, and just how not sending them out for that extra inning, or how you're able to, all right, fine, maybe you just sat through the other pitcher throw 30 innings, since they'll keep him on the bench. Those things kind of can go a long way in avoiding injury. So I think that's one of the things that the Philly staff seems to have a decent handle on, is how to manage their pitching staff successfully.
For sure, man. It really has been impressive. We talked about how Wheeler, he deserves the Cy Young, especially if he keeps pitching this way. He doesn't have to pitch as good as he did in June, but if he keeps pitching the way that he's been going, why wouldn't he deserve it? He's tied for Skeens with WAR for pitchers. He's second in ERA behind Skeens. He has the best whip in the major leagues. His hits per 9 are right there. His strikeouts per 9 are second to Sale. He's a guy who's going to take the ball every 5th day. He's 4th in innings at 107. Like he's a guy who every time he goes out there, He's going to give you 6+. There's going to be plenty of nights where he gives you 7, and he's going to give you the occasional 8 like he did on Monday. There's no reason to think that he shouldn't be in the conversation and potentially finally get that Cy Young award that's been evading him. But before we get to that, we're only a couple of weeks away from the All-Star game, Major League All-Star game happening in just 2 weeks. This coming weekend, they'll be announcing the pitching staffs and the reserves. So no Phillies were named position player starters, despite Trey Turner leading the league in hits. He did not win the voting. That went to Francisco Lindor. Well-deserved All-Star nod for Lindor, but still, Trey Turner, probably the only real shot that they had to win one of those starting spots was going to be Turner, and Mets fans showed up and voted for their guy. That being said, one of the big discussions this weekend is going to be who gets the starting nod for both the American and the National League. And the way that he's pitched, especially as of late, whether he plans on actually throwing or not, it has to go to Zack Wheeler. He deserves one of these accolades eventually, Chris. He should have won the Cy in 2021. He should have been the starter a couple years ago. He had a good chance to win it last year. When's this guy going to get his flowers? And this feels like the year to do it.
It feels like the year to do it, but it's probably not going to happen. Skeens seems to be the popular name, and the All-Star game seems to be about getting the attention. So I could see where that would be the way they would go. I don't know. Personally, on a personal level, that would have to be such an awesome feeling for a Philadelphia pitcher to walk into rival Truist Park in Atlanta as one of the best pitchers in the game and start the All-Star game. So I would be stoked if he gets it. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, the one thing I was talking about with my son, I would think that he is, while inside baseball, everybody knows who Zack Wheeler is. Everybody knows how good he was supposed to be with the Mets, how good he has become since joining the Phillies. I think that anybody would say that you flip a coin between he and Skeens on who's been the best pitcher in the National League this year. And many might give the nod to Wheeler because, as we've mentioned, he only has 2 years left after this in the league. Give the guy his flowers while he's here. That being said, as my son mentioned, Paul Skeens is a way bigger name outside, whether it's because you know Paul Skeens, whether it's because you know Livy Dunn, whether it's because you're just younger and you happen to know who these guys are via social media. Wheeler's our age. Skeens is their age, and MLB would prefer to target them. Now, it may not be up to them, but maybe Major League Baseball makes a heavy-handed suggestion to the manager down there for the All-Star game to push Skeens instead. I think that Wheeler would more than deserve it. Would it surprise me if Skeens got it? Probably not.
So a shout out to a different YouTube channel. I don't know these people, but they did an absolutely fantastic video on the Mets experience for Zack Wheeler. It's called Stark Raving Sports. They put it out about a month ago. It's close to 60,000 views right now. And I watched this, I don't know, a month ago, something like that. And it's just a really, really good look on how Wheeler, who was supposed to be their ace, got into some injury trouble, was basically cast aside by the New York Mets to then just come and be an absolute dominant force that he was always supposed to do with one of their biggest rivals in the Phillies. So shout out to Stark Raving Sports. They did an absolutely fantastic job. It's about a 20-minute video, a little shorter than 20 minutes, but I actually highly recommend watching for any Phillies fan.
To plug ourselves, I did a little preview and a little story for leading into the divisional series last year against the Mets because they had that history. I did a little look back on what he went through. So feel free to take a look through
check
my
out Kyle's
page
first and then go check out
exactly.
Stark Raving.
We'll link to both in the comments. How about that? We'll link to both in the comments so you guys can see someone else's video, but check out our content at the same time. Appreciate the love. Yeah, for Wheeler, obviously, we talked about, I think he deserves that look. But I want to get into a little prediction mode, right? So no Phillies named to the All-Star team as of yet, but we know that there are some high-level performers on this squad. We have reserves being named this weekend. We have the pitching being named this weekend. Chris, your perspective, who do we predict makes the All-Star team this year from the Phillies? Last year they had a record 8 make the All-Star team. We know it's not going to be that high, but who you got from the Phillies who has a real shot of making it?
Well, if the unicorn that was Shohei Ohtani wasn't in LA, Kyle Schwarber would definitely have been the DH, in my opinion. I can't say that.
No, I think you're right.
I think he's got a shot. So I definitely see Schwarber as a DH, a bench spot, what have you, right fielder, whatever. Ronald Acuna Jr. played a month and got an all-star nod. So, why not? Trey Turner's probably the only other person that really has an outside chance. Batting average is up around 300, so that's going to help a little bit. The 39 RBIs will help. 11 road home runs, so there's a chance he'll hit a home run in the All-Star game because he's not playing at home. That's always promising. And then the 21 stolen bases is definitely is something that's going to help pad his resume there.
For sure. We do have a nice comment from a Mets fan in the chat. Jose Alvaroido, he liked to call him. While I would normally discount it, I mean, he did play about as long as Ronald Acuna did, and Ronald Acuna is starting. So maybe he wouldn't. I wouldn't be too upset if he made it. Wouldn't accept him on the list.
I have one question for everyday Mets, and how is it gonna feel to watch Pete Crow Armstrong start in center field for the Chicago Cubs?
That's going to feel pretty good, especially when he's playing defense behind Zack Wheeler getting the start. How's that going to feel every day, Mets? Got to feel pretty
it's Brian's burner.
Pretty questionable.
That's what it is.
It has to be. I mean, that's the only person I know who would hop in here with a Mets with a Mets thing. Or we've blown up, Chris. It's either we've blown up or it's Brian's burner. Either way,
it's possible.
I'm still excited to mess around with some Mets fans. As always, hop in the chat. Let us know what you think. Join the combo. I think you mentioned the guys, right? It's not going to be, and this is no offense to those guys because I think that they're having better seasons than you realize, but like Marsh got off to too slow of a start.
Mm-hmm.
Kepler's average, a lot of people hold that against him. Really not a full platoon, but mostly platooning. Harper missed too much time despite Ronald Acuna doing the exact same thing, and the numbers haven't necessarily been what you might expect from a normal Bryce Harper. It is weird that Harper's not in it just because he is one of the biggest names in the majors, but I understand why he didn't make it. I also don't. Acuna, it is in his park, so that adds a little bit to it. But Harper not making it, a little tough. I think you already mentioned Trey, makes sense. Bryson and Alec again, just too little, too late. Really hot, but just not enough as of late. Real Muto has been a little hot lately, but he and Marchand, you're not going to see either one of those guys make it. Schwarber's been one of the better hitters in the National League, especially. So I would imagine he'll be named as a reserve. The question with him is if they're willing to add Rafael Devers. He was the lead. I believe he was the leading vote getter at DH in the American League before the trade. So it would be a little difficult to exclude him, but I don't really know how that works. His votes shouldn't carry over. He's in the National League now. He's barely had any time in the National League. I don't know how that works. He also is more than willing to play third and first now that he's in San Francisco. But Kyle Schwarber.
He'd be willing to play dugout in that ballpark.
Anyway, Schwarber was more than willing and more than deserving to make it, so wouldn't be surprised if he got named to the team as well. One guy who really sticks out to me is Mr. Orion Kerkering, apparently the handler of Tugger, the new the new dog, the new service dog in training.
Can you call him a dog when he's asleep all the time?
Oh, he was so cute though.
He's so cute, but he doesn't sleep.
That picture of the Fanatic kissing him is like, dude.
So upset I was up in the booth for that.
So ridiculous.
I should have been on the field.
I could stare at that picture all day long. I'm serious. I could do it. That being said, Orion Kerkering, he's been absolutely lights out. His ERA down to 2.41 on the season. Since May 1st, a 0.81 ERA, Chris. The guy has been absolutely disgusting. Gives you another reliable arm back there. The thing, not that they didn't already consider him a reliable arm, but it kind of felt this way last year where he was like the secondary or tertiary option when it came to the right-handed pitchers at the end of the game. He is now the primary option. A lot of that has to do with Jordan Romano's struggles, but it also has a lot to do with Orion Kerkering. He's been absolutely disgusting. We all know about the sweeper. We all know about the 100 miles an hour on the fastball. The one thing that I've seen a tick up in this year that's really excited me is the use of the sinker. Now, he did use the sinker a little bit last year. I think it was around like 13%. It's up to about 17 or 18% now. He really has used that thing effectively. If you remember yesterday, he got Manny Machado looking to the point where Machado was arguing with the umpire, which he doesn't do as much as he used to. Really, really fooled an awesome hitter, Machado, with that thing. And it gives him a little bit of an extra dynamic. Same arm slot as the four-seamer and the sweeper, but breaks the other way into a right-hander. He used it to backdoor him and really keep him off balance. He had been pounding the outside, and then boom, hits one that comes back. The sinker has been really good for him. It moves incredibly. Paul Casella from MLB.com put out a nice little tweet about how effective his pitches have been. If you want to go check that out, a lot of advanced stuff that I don't want to get into on the show here, but he's been really, really strong as of late, and he's helped stabilize a bullpen that we all know needs a little bit of help. Yes, some help will be coming in the form of our favorite, our everyday Mets favorite player, Jose Alvarado, in mid-August. But we know they're gonna make some deadline additions coming up. He has helped stabilize a unit that felt like a lot of people were in panic mode about early in the season. What can you say about how good Kerkering's been for them as of late, Chris?
I mean, I don't really have a ton to add. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. He's come in, he shut things down, especially after the early struggles to Jordan Romano. Matt Strom's been really good, but has been shaky at times. And then on the flip side, you go ahead, you look across the border, and you've got Jeff Hoffman, the former Philly, absolutely lighting things up. So it's one of those things that there was a lot of eyes on the bullpen for an extended period of time. And Kerkering's really allowed the offense to now take the brunt of that focus. And, in his situation, that's probably the best thing that he could have done for the team, or at least for the bullpen anyway.
Yeah, man. And like we said, I know that I talked about the 0.81 ERA since May 1st, but think about it in this capacity instead. He's appeared in 25 games since May 1st. He's allowed runs twice. That means 23 scoreless outings in his last 25. That, to me, speaks volumes beyond just looking at the number. If you look at how – that's what you need from a bullpen. You need a guy who can come in and shut people down, and that's exactly what he's been able to do. He does have a little bit of the Brad Lidge, like, I need a little bit of noise to get the juices flowing. Brad Lidge, they used to say, not nearly as bad as Mitch, but they used to talk about how he kind of needed some runners on to really get going. We talk about, what was it, last night? He came in the eighth, was it? Yeah, the eighth inning. Walked to Cronenworth to start the inning. Hard hit ball lined out to Alec Boehm. A shorter player would not have caught that. Nice jump from Boehm. A single from Tatis. And then
that went right over the glove.
Yep.
Right over the glove of Turner.
Exactly. And then back-to-back strikeouts. So a little bit of hard hit, but nothing that he wasn't leaving it over the plate to where it was getting sent out of the ballpark. He has been absolutely lights out. So good for them as of late. But they do need some help. Everyday Mets seems to think that Dombrowski's asleep at the wheel. I don't know about that much. I think that he's ready to make some moves. They have talked repeatedly about how they have their top priority is relief pitching. I don't care what anybody wants to say about last season. They took Harper's advice and they got Hoffman up here because he looked that good. They worked with him. He was disgusting. The Carlos Estevez trade was great. The Carlos Estevez trade was great. I questioned the Tanner Banks trade. He's been a godsend for them this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's not lights out, but he does so much for them as far as eating up innings. He comes in a lot of guys left scenario in relief of middle innings instead of coming into a clean inning. Kerkering did that early in the season as well. I have faith that he's going to go out there and get one or two arms. Now, they might not be your Emmanuel Clases or your Johan Durans, but I think he's going to go out there and get two arms to really help supplement this pitching staff. His big thing, though, is I would temper expectations, is he seems to think that just like he did in Boston and just like Tampa did with David Price. I mean, he did it again in Boston under Dombrowski, but he's going to get arms to help them survive the regular season. He already feels with the depths of starting pitching that they have, that they already have the arms that they'll need for October. That's one thing that I'm unsure about. I do think that if it works, it looks like a brilliant move, right? If you can go and put Luzardo out there and his 97 ticks up to 99 out of the pen, giving you bulk in October. The big thing is you need to get there, right? That's a big part of it is surviving and getting to that point. Suggestion here from Everyday Mets. First off, love that you're still watching this show, despite it being a Philly-centric show, and love that you're jumping in the conversation. So appreciate you and the love that you're giving the show today. It would be nice to have Sir Anthony Dominguez on the Phillies. He's a name, right? He's a name that people have brought up. He's pitching pretty well down in Baltimore. There's a lot of guys in that Baltimore bullpen who might be available. But the stabilization that Orion Kirkring has brought recently is worth, in my mind, selfishly, but you look at the numbers, especially as of late, is worth a nod in the All-Star game as well.
Yeah. If you take a look at where the Phillies have excelled in scouting, it's in the pitching department for sure.
Sanchez.
Being able to get Sanchez out of Tampa Bay, being able to get Stubbs
Colorado
as a backup catcher. Stubbs, even though he's with Lehigh Valley right now, was a trade with the Astros. And they're able to get him to help the pitching staff, although it's, as a catcher is only going to do so much. But
still, major league veteran who's caught a ton of really good pitchers, that helps.
Exactly, and then like you mentioned, the Estevez trade. So I don't doubt Dombrowski's ability to identify who he wants. I don't think he'll overpay, but you do have to start to wonder at what point is this team, quote, too old, where it doesn't matter what you do. You're at the end of that championship window. We're definitely not there yet, but when you've got a 35-year-old Wheeler, you've got Bryce Harper at the halfway point of his contract now. JT Realmuto is going to be a pending free agent. Schwarber, pending free agent. So, like you mentioned at the start of the show, there's a lot of question marks to be answered.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to have to wait a couple weeks. They don't seem like they're going to jump on things early. TR in the comments, what amount of this, what you were just talking about, is attributable to the GM identifying talent versus having Realmuto and Caleb Cotham? It's an interesting thing to think about. I've wanted to talk to Cotham and just haven't had the availability about some of the things that they look for, because it's not the same thing in every guy. It's not, hey, we're targeting guys with wipeout sliders because the entirety of Major League Baseball is struggling with the slider. You have different guys. Alvarado, everybody knew that he had raw talent, but didn't really bring it together until he was here. Ended up with a pretty decent sized contract as a result. Sanchez, question marks up and down about that guy. Wasn't necessarily a top 10 prospect on anybody's list. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball now. Jeff Hoffman, they pulled him. Now, again, was a first-round pick, so not saying plucked him from obscurity, but he had been faltering. They identified something in him, worked on it, and brought it up. But I think that the thing that I've gotten from conversations with Dombrowski and hearing about the way that Mattingly talks about the front office, I think that they do a lot of these conversations together. I would love to speak to Cotham, and I'll add it to the list next time I reach out to the PR team, but I would love to talk to him about how involved the front office is. Is the front office saying, hey, we like 5 guys, go tell us what you see out of those 5 guys and who we should target? Or is it the other way?
Pretty tasty. It's pretty tasty.
Of course. It is expensive, though. Really expensive.
Well, everything is expensive now.
That's fair.
No, it's one of those things that I think it's a Venn diagram of both. It really is, because in order for Realmuto and Cotham to even work with them, they have to identify and acquire them. And if you're not able to identify that talent, then they're not there for them to work with. So I think it's the 6 eggs in one basket, half a dozen in another. But I do think they go hand in hand. With that being said, I think you can see, based off of the Philly starting pitching staff, just how good that combination of Realmuto and Cotham has been, just because of how dominant they've all been.
Yeah, and I would think that if you are a general manager and you're identifying somebody who might be available that otherwise wouldn't if they were at their peak performance, you would ask your pitching coach, hey, what do you think of this guy, and can we fix it, right? And I'm sure that 99% of pitching coaches are going to be like, yeah, bring him in here, I can fix him, but having real conversations about what do you see in this guy that we can bring out of him, or that we can develop, and we can help him bring to the front of his game, instead of it being something that's not really focused on. What can we do for this guy that will help him and ourselves along the way? I would think, like you said, it's a Venn diagram. They may be looking at things separately, but when they come together, they find where they overlap. Yeah. I know I just defined what a Venn diagram is for those at home, but that's
you drew it out
example, Chris. Yes, of course, you got to, and then what fits here, what goes around. Anyway, oh man, one thing that I saw interesting. We're talking about potential trades. We're not going into our trade examples. If you want to see some of our under the radar names, we had a very great episode last week. Myself, Chris, and Ben did a nice little breakdown, a little bit of a longer episode. But if you go to the last half hour, 45 minutes, we did a fun conversation on the trade deadline. But one thing that came out this week, I am a little bit of surprise here for you, Chris, but I didn't read the article myself. I just focused on a couple names. The Athletic did a trade deadline prediction piece, but it was speaking to executives across baseball under the guise of anonymity, right? So that they're willing to speak a little bit more about what they've seen and who they think might be moved at this coming deadline. Obviously, a lot of relief pitchers, your Ryan Helsleys, your Clases, your Durans, the Bednar, and who's the other guy from Santana from the Pirates, Bautista from the Orioles. One name that comes up a lot is Mason Miller, and we know how exciting he is. He pitched well in Philadelphia last season when the A's beat the Phillies in July. Pitched really well. We know how good he is. Electric fastball. One thing that I had not considered that stuck out to me, again, I looked at this article like 15 minutes beforehand, so apologies to surprise you with this one. But not only is he strong, his ERA is a little inflated, a 4.55 at the moment, but 52 strikeouts over 31 and 2/3 innings. He's averaging over 100 miles an hour on the fastball, nearly at 101. Batters are hitting 122 against his slider, so clearly he has the stuff, right? And pitching in a big postseason might be exactly what the guy needs to get back to what we saw from him last year. However, one thing that I did not think about, they said one NL GM said that it could potentially be foolish for them to hang on to him if they don't intend to convert him to a starting pitcher. Now, I didn't realize that was on the table for Mason Miller. I assumed that if you come up as a young player on a team that doesn't necessarily competing, that you would be coming up in whatever role they envision you in for the long term. Like if Mason Miller is a potential project to be a starting pitcher long term, why would the A's rush him to the major leagues, mess with his service time, as you mentioned, and put him in a position that he's not going to be in the future? I mean, whatever, maybe you want to give the guy some exposure, but I thought that was a big thing. And the main reason it stood out to me is because that changes the perceived trade value of him drastically. I thought that if they were going to trade for him, they would have to give up a pretty big time prospect to begin with, or maybe two guys from that second, two guys plus from that second tier, if they were able to manage some negotiations by adding a little bit of whatever they need, another pitching prospect, whatever the case might be. But if people are envisioning him as a closer to help this year and a starter of the future, you're talking, it has to be two of your top tier guys to start the conversation. And to me, right away, that eliminates the Phillies from discussions on Mason Miller. Not that I thought that they really had a shot at getting him, but I know that I'm surprising you with this. Is that anything you had heard, an inkling of, that he could potentially be a starting pitcher? Maybe I'm just not in tune enough with A's baseball.
Well, I mean, you asked how it could happen. They're the A's. That's how it happens. Look, while you might be able to stretch him out and lengthen that arm a little bit, why would you mess with what's been dominance already? He is electric out of the pen. He keeps guys off their toes. And honestly, the longer he spends in a closer role, is better for him, because if he becomes a starter, then you get more innings on him, and you get more of a book on him, and you get a better read on him, and then all of a sudden he's pitching at a 4.5 ERA. I don't see any reason why you would need to mess with that. Um, yeah, I could see it, but I don't. To me, that just seems like you go to Home Depot, you buy everything, and then you kind of just don't do the project.
So, like, every time I've tried to do something at my house, that's
exactly.
You're saying it's a Kyle Fisher home improvement episode. That's what it is. That's what I'm hearing is bringing him up as a closer. But that would be it's going to be something I'm very interested in watching closely, whether it be the deadline or the offseason. And I'm assuming that I'll be watching from afar because he won't be on the Phillies anytime soon, if at all. So
that combo deal with Oakland is still my top wish list.
He and Rooker?
Yeah.
I think he had a better shot of pulling it off last year, but the Rooker extension, Miller has another year of showing that he can get major league talent out with regular consistency. The one thing that stood out to me besides that, so that is a speed bump on the road to my ultimate point about this article, Chris, is this is, again, anonymous execs, anonymous GMs. Multiple GMs think that if the Phillies can pull off a trade to upgrade a bat in the outfield, that they would be more than willing to eat money to trade Nick Castellanos away to another team. Now, there had been rumors in the offseason about that being a potential thing. I have not heard that from people who I know closer to the organization than myself. I have two people who have had some decent news that I've been able to get from them before it broke. Or at least rumors that seem to be true when you hear other people with sources start to come up. Haven't heard an inkling of this. He's been decent this season, 282, best batting average he's had in a Phillies uniform. He's now at double-digit home runs. He's, especially in the month of June, he's really ticked up his aggression, over 50% extra base hits. Like, of his hits, more than 50% of them were extra base hits in the month of June. He's hitting his hardest balls in the month of June. He usually heats up in August, so to see him really start to excel now is great. We know how he is in the field. He can make the plays that he can get to. He can make, right. He doesn't have otherworldly range. We know he's limited as far as range is concerned, but he's rarely, I know outside of a few mess ups here and there, he's rarely a guy who you're like, oh, that's a liability. He keeps making errors left and right. He's not a big error guy. He might not get to every ball. The advanced metrics don't love him, but my eyes tell me that he plays just a fine right field, especially for a guy who watched Pat Burrell play left field for so long. The money is a lot for what you've gotten from him versus what you expected to get from him, but he's a clubhouse leader. I would be stunned that if they upgraded a bat, that they would be willing to move on from a guy like that at the same time. That would shock me. If they
screams off-season trade.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I thought it was really weird, because they don't mention that in the article. Maybe that's what they meant and it was omitted from the article, but it's The Athletic. They rarely do things like that. There's other spots where they specifically said some GMs mentioned him, a different player, but some GMs mentioned this player as potentially this season. Most GMs thought it was more than likely an off-season move, and they didn't say that for Nick. I would be stunned if they did.
If it's enough of an upgrade, I could see it, but I don't even know who's out there on the market that would warrant wanting to potentially disrupt that clubhouse.
I agree, and what we talked last week about a lot of the available bats, or at least the bats that have been rumored to be available, right? Or people say, oh, this guy would be a great fit here. This guy might be available because XYZ. A lot of those guys would potentially be available because they're having down years now. Adolis Garcia, Tyler Wade, Ward, excuse me. Joe Adell having a flash, but he has 2 years left. Jarren Duran having a worse year than he did last year. So there's a lot of things about, like, a lot of these bats seem to be only available because they're having down seasons, but offense is down across the league. So like you said, unless there was a surprise where somebody suddenly just goes on a tailspin, falls out of it, and a guy who would have never been available last week is available in 3 weeks. Maybe you would do something like that. But again, why mess with that clubhouse dynamic? You already know what you have in him. You know what you can rely on him for. He's a great mentor to the young outfielders that they have. And I know he's not very young, but Marsh and then obviously Rojas. I wouldn't necessarily move on from him. TR with another comment. Fans might not love Castellanos, but he's been pretty good offensively, second in the NL in doubles. Upgrading the outfield would seem to have to be massive to consider dealing him. And Chris, right in line with what you said. I mean, second in the league in doubles, and it didn't feel that way a month ago. He really turned it on in June, and look where he is he's back to being an extra base hit machine. I think I've talked about that a couple times in recent episodes with you, Chris. It's like that's what they expected when they signed him to that 5-year deal. He's starting to show it now in this last month.
It's a swap that just doesn't make sense because at that point you still need to go get another fielder. So unless it's a matter of, you're able to, consummate a deal that you've, talked about previously with another GM, and they're finally like, all right, fine, we'll do it for X, Y, or Z reason. But it's not something that really makes sense to me. Especially with some of the bigger contracts like your Real Muto, like your Schwarber's potentially coming off the books. That frees up money to then potentially look at, okay, well, can we trade Castellanos to get something in the offseason to shake things up? But it's just not something that screams in season trade to me.
I agree, man. I think that's odd to be on there, but hey, the GMs are way more in tune than we are, right? So
again,
something to
maybe
keep an eye on.
The GM's laying foundation for an offseason trade.
Maybe it was someone who's very interested in acquiring Nick Castellanos who said this. Who knows, right?
Maybe it was the Washington Nationals. I don't know that. I don't have any source on that. But maybe it was the Washington Nationals trying to lay down a little bit of foundation to get him there. Who knows? Again, that's why they're able to speak on anonymity for these things. But it does definitely reveal some interesting insights into the league.
Yeah. And anonymity or not, all of these guys have ulterior motives and agendas that they want to accomplish when this news gets out there. So maybe maybe that was the Mets GM trying to ruffle some feathers down in Philadelphia while his team struggles. Who the heck knows? That being said, like you said, I don't think it's going to happen in the offseason. Well before we get to the trade deadline, well before we get to the All-Star break, we do have a weekend series against the Cincinnati Reds. Those Phillies facing two tough lefties that Cincinnati is going to bring to Citizens Bank Park this weekend. Chris, what are your thoughts on this weekend series? Cincinnati, despite not having the best record in the world, still not that far out of a playoff spot. They are a younger, exciting team with a decent pitching staff. If they start putting things together, they could make some noise at the trade deadline. They could make some noise down the stretch. But what about this weekend? We know who. Tell the people who the Phillies have coming up against them, and who they should be on the lookout for against this Reds team.
Well, first and foremost, the NL Central is absolute dumpster fire. the records in the NL Central right now, I just had it up. Chicago Cubs 51-35. They're doing well. Props to the Cubs. Milwaukee 48-38, pretty good. St. Louis 47-41, still pretty good, although they lost. They got lost their last series, and then Cincinnati 45-42. So several plus 500 teams, and yet at the same time, I'm like, okay, but who's on any of these clubs besides Kyle Tucker and the Cubs? So it's one of those that I'm surprised how competitive that division is. I think you hit the nail on the head. If they're able to put some things together, they have the opportunity to at least make some noise, at least make life difficult for a team in the wild card chase, and having to get through that wild card or potentially a divisional series matchup. Ellie De La Cruz, just a specimen. 18 home runs this year, 58 RBIs, just one of the best up and coming players in the game, not named Bobby Witt Jr. So it's not going to be an easy series, but again, it's another one that you should be able to check the box of win 2 out of 3, win the series. I think the Phillies should be able to do that in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think Friday is going to be the toughest matchup for them. Luzardo, he's been great once again. Again, if you take out not that you can erase 2 starts, but his numbers look, I mean, I didn't do the math, but it probably drops by a run at least if you take out those 20 earned runs over the 5 1/3 innings. Guy 7-4, still has 111 strikeouts this season. He's been absolutely lights out for them if outside of those two starts. But they are going up against a really tough left-hander in Andrew Abbott, a 1.79 ERA, 7-1 record, a 1.02 WHIP. Not a big strikeout artist, but he does get a lot of effective outs. He's not a big fly ball pitcher. He handled the Phillies in the little bit of exposure that they had to him last season. Combined, they have a 172 batting average against him as a team. Bohm, 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. They have one other extra base hit as a team. It's Real Muto. So we'll have to see how Friday goes against Abbott to really determine if they're going to win that series. Luzardo has been really good, but like you said, Suarez and Wheeler going Saturday and Sunday gives them a shot against anybody. Nick Lodolo is an interesting name. He's another tough left-hander. Obviously, they're going to go right-handed heavy. You'll see a heavy dose of Otto Kemp and Edmundo Sosa, I would think, this weekend. Although Lodolo's 3.52 ERA doesn't look too intimidating on the surface, it's obviously strong, but he's left-handed, which the Phillies struggle against, and he has a 2.31 ERA on the road this season. So really amps himself up getting ready for those matchups in unfriendly territory. We'll see how they do against the Phillies this weekend. But going up against Ranger Suarez, that's going to be another tough night for any offense. And I think that's going to be the difference. The difference for the Phillies this weekend is whether their offense struggles against those lefties or not, their starting pitching is going to give them a chance to win all 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's one of the things that the Phillies team is built on. Are their starters, is the strength of their starting pitching. And again, you can match up the Philly starters against just about anybody in the league. And I feel pretty comfortable saying you should win 2 out of 3. Whether or not it ends up working that way in the playoffs, we'll find out. But it definitely is a strong group of pitchers, and one that I think that the rest of the league is probably pretty envious of, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they should be if they're not, right? Sunday for the Reds, they're going to send the young phenom Chase Burns out. A lot thinks that a lot of the issues that he had in his first start against the Red Sox, they feel was related to him tipping his pitches. Obviously, he's not going to reveal that. The club's not going to reveal what that looked like, but he did.
John Boy might though.
John yeah. I'll have to check out the video before Sunday. I'm sure that these guys are tuned into that as well. But did a little bit of pitch tipping. Otherwise, we know he's a highly touted prospect coming up as a rookie. Should look really good. Hasn't pitched against the Phillies as of yet, obviously. So we'll have to see what he looks like. If he did fix some things, that could be a tough day for the Phillies offense, but it is against a right-handed pitcher, something that they've been able to have success against this season. So if he did fix that, that tipping issue, it should be a fun pitching weekend at the very least. If you love strong starting pitching, you're going to get plenty of it in spades this weekend. Like you said, Chris, I'm also predicting a series victory. We'll have to see how they go, but a nice day off today. Day game tomorrow for the holiday. And then
follow along. I'll be in the booth.
There you go. I was about to say, Chris, plug them. Tell them where you're going to be this weekend.
Yeah, I'm getting the opportunity to spend July 4th at Citizens Bank Park. I find my work right underneath my name there. C. Babos Writes, Christopher Babos on LinkedIn, Christopher Michael on Facebook. And I just started a new Instagram profile for my sports photography pictures. So give me a follow on Instagram. It's cover_215. And get excited for some Philadelphia sports pictures to come your way.
Well, as you mentioned, make sure you follow along with him tomorrow for all the Phillies action. Definitely give him a follow. Love the pictures. We were looking at some of the pictures in the booth that he took yesterday. A nice shot of Schwarber on deck with Turner up at the plate. Love that picture. So make sure you post that one if you haven't done so already. Our man Chris will be in the booth tomorrow, followed by Sean Nestor on Saturday at SHAUN, Sean_Nestor. For Saturday's action, and myself, I will be returning to the booth on Sunday for the series finale. Wheeler versus Burns should be another good one. Keep it locked in all season long to Philadelphia SN on X at Philly Sportsnet on Blue Sky right here weekly on Fridays. I know we have a special episode today, but looking at every Friday at 2 o'clock, myself looped in with a group of people. Chris is able to join me on the regular. Maybe I'll be solo on occasion. Maybe there will be 4 of us like there was earlier in the season. We'll have plenty of action leading up to the All-Star game once the final rosters are set. We'll have plenty of action leading up to and coming out of the trade deadline. There we go. I got there. And obviously the rest of the season will carry you the whole way. Follow along at Philadelphia SN on the socials at Philly Sportsnet. We got me here, Chris there. Give us a follow. Stay tuned in all season long for wonderful Phillies coverage from our entire Phillies team. Check out Chris with some great stuff. Some of our flyer streams have really popped off in the last week as the draft and free agency came and went. Make sure you keep it locked in for Chris for everything. And check Philly SN YouTube all off season long for the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. And obviously keep us locked in on Alley Talk on Fridays. We appreciate you guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Chris, appreciate you, my man. We'll have to get the stylist out there for the next doubleheader. I got to figure out how to blur my alfalfa, man. I got to get rid of that
haircut. That's all. Just need to get a haircut.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you, TR, Evan, that upset Mets fan every day, Mets. We appreciate all of you guys for hopping in the conversation. Spread the word. Let people know that we respect and love everybody's opinions here. We respect and love all of you. Thank you for joining us once again for this week's Alley Talk, and we will catch you guys next Friday at 2 o'clock. Peace.